Welcome to Let's Get Metaphysical, the show that stretches you beyond your five senses. When you are looking for your next step on the path into the unseen, we've got you covered. Join epic adventure seekers and level up your game with your host, reality magician Allie Bierman.
Greetings, epic adventure seekers. Welcome. I'm Allie Bierman, your guide to demystifying your world. And we're here today with a special edition of Let's Get Metaphysical show. And today's guest, Monica Bermudez, was one of the very first people interviewed when I started this podcast. In fact, she was the 5th episode. And I describe her as your catalyst to a sacred heart awakening. And she's here today with some more surprise adventures. Before we jump in, I have a question for you. Have you ever felt like life just happens to you and you have no say in it? Well, if that's you, I made a gift for you. It's called Step in a New Direction. And it's a very quick read that allows you to begin to discover your power and your control every day in your life. And the link to download that will be in the show notes. And I am so excited to welcome my dear friend and my absolutely brilliant, different energy type person. Welcome again to our show, Monica.
Thank you so much for having me here, Allie. I'm just so excited to be back on your show and so honored. And so just thank you for this space and for everything that you just shared. And I'm always excited to connect with you.
Thank you. I feel the same. Your energy is like, whoa, 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 whoa.
It's a nice way to describe it.
Yeah, it feels like that sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like a bubbly, like.
That's a perfect description of how I experience your energy. And even if it's not in a live video, it still comes across. Yeah, it's one of the many things I love about you, and your work is so important and it's so well done. So I wondered if you'd please share 3 facts about you that you think our listeners would be interested in knowing or have no idea about.
Quantum activator. I'm a reawakened Lemurian high priestess, and I channel light language. So top 3.
And those are top 3 things that I don't know anybody else who describes themselves as any of those. Would you mind explaining what they are for those of us who may not have the clarity? Is that easy to do?
Oh, yeah, we can go ahead and do that. So when I say quantum activator, I'm talking going at the DNA level and activating certain aspects that have been dormant. And when I speak of quantum, I mean things are moving at an accelerated level. And so it will also shift a lot of layers that are associated to karmic or ancestral patterns that no longer belong there, that have been sabotaging or blocking from, being in your highest potential. And the reawakened Lemurian high priestess, I am, high priestess from Lemuria. So Lemuria was actually the continent is called Mu, and this continent existed for hundreds of thousands of years ago on the planet Earth, and it was mainly on the Pacific Ocean side. So you can look at the California side. There used to be this other big continent there. Some of the remnants of it are in Hawaii Islands, and some other islands are in the Pacific area. And so these are considered to be part of the ancient civilizations. And then, of course, you have, Atlantis that was also part of an ancient civilization that was on the Atlantic Ocean, on the East Coast side. So that's, really something that I felt that I really was very connected to Mu since I was little, actually. And it's not until years much later that I had the reawakening of my high priestess side through somebody who was channeling. the Lemurian priestess Circle of 13, Sanra, that, came out, and it has been unfolding more so. So my Lemurian high priestess name is Moshana Hale. That is the name that I have, been carrying, and it has energy in it too. So yeah, so it brings up more of the memories of my time in Mu. I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
No, it's just names are really, really, really important.
Yes, yes, they are. And even the names that we have now, we have the names for a reason. And, we also have names for our soul, and also that's activating in a way too. So, yeah, so that's, the second one. The third one that I channel, the light language. So I hope these are making sense. It's not like going all over the place. I know it's a lot to take in, especially if it's new and you're hearing this for the first time and never heard of a continent called Mu or an ancient civilization like this. But the thing is that there have been so many ancient civilizations that have existed on this planet Earth, and most of them lost into history. So, anyways, it's all inside of us. We carry the memory in our soul DNA, in our soul aspect and essence of us. And so that brings me to the last one, which is the channeling of the light language. And so, for those who haven't heard of light language, really what it is, it's unique sounds and vibrations that are channeled, that come out, through me. And the one specific one that I've been really channeling has to do with the dragon energy, which is the story that we're going to jump into here. This fun chat that we're going to have about it and how that all evolved inside of me, with the light language and all that. So
I'm just super excited to learn about that because I'm not much into science fiction, but I read Nora Roberts wrote a trilogy, and she's best known for her romance novels, but she decided to go into the science fiction, and she has every kind of non-human. She has humans in there too, but she's got dragons and elves and fairies and you name it. So I'm really, really interested because it's not an accident. I keep coming across dragons and all the stuff that I'm looking at.
yeah.
And so yeah, please share that with us.
Yeah, I would love to share that. Before jumping in, though, I just want to make sure that, for the listeners who may be hearing about dragons for the first time, or they may have been conditioned a certain way, because I've noticed that a lot of Hollywood movies have been putting a bad rap on the dragons. So, like in everything, there's all kinds, right? But the dragons that I work with are very loving. They're very playful, they're very joyful, and they're very magical and super wise and intelligent. So they do share a lot of guidance and information, with me. And of course, they can also in your life if you allow them to come, in your life. And so the dragons they existed at one point, like during the ancient civilizations like Mu and Atlantis, before everything got separated and it went into this big, dark side of separation. And so a lot of the dragons left the earth because of that, because they've always been very loving dragons, and at some point they were being abused, because when that whole separation happened, they started to get abused. And so they wanted to stick around, to really help humanity, and some of them may have stayed, but they are in different dimensions existing. And so now with the new energies that we're in for this new earth, they are coming back. And so the kingdom, of the dragons, and they are connecting with us, for those who are really calling them, who resonate with them, who want to play with them in this loving and magical way, and they are very powerful. They can really shift layers of any karmic or ancestral permanently, if we just allow it and we're willing to work with them in that way. So I wanted to just say that, because I know that there may be some listeners who may be hearing about dragons for the first time, and they may only be familiar with them from whatever bad information they had gotten from Hollywood movies, or any type of bad image on them or something.
But I'm just listening to you, and I've studied with so many people, and this one person said all the creatures that you see in the Hollywood movies, they're not taking that out of the air, that they're probably channeling them in. It's like the person,
Yes.
Gene Roddenberry. I'm not a Star Trek person, so I might have his name wrong. Who wrote all of that? Look how much of it came to be. So is
Mm-hmm.
it really science fiction?
Yeah.
Like I have a friend who is a brilliant writer, and he wrote stuff that was like what happened with the COVID world, only he wrote this years ago, and how the world shut down. It's like, I think they're just tuning in, like you're describing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I firmly believe that too. They're definitely channeling a lot of the fictional characters. For instance, I got into this impulse of rewatching all the Harry Potter movies again. And I feel like I'm watching them with new eyes because now that I look at it, it's like, you know what? This is based on a true story. All the magic and all that, I feel like all of that is true. And it was channeled in the moment that this was, written. Because I look at all the magical creatures in there and they're all like very unique. And I feel that we had many of those magical creatures at one point. So it's just, we harness a lot of magic and a lot of power in us. And that's something that the dragon reminds us of, the power of the dragon. So yeah, for sure.
May I ask you, on the dragons, my mind goes to, like, how big were they? Were they like dinosaurs from little tiny to big? Is it, what kind of
uh,
pictures?
all of the above, actually, they vary in size. Some of them are tiny. And you have all sorts of like dragons that are focused energetic in certain areas. Like some may be focused on, be the water dragons, and then you have the air dragons, and you have the fire dragons, and you have the earth dragons. And actually, like all the dragons do are masters of the elements, but then you have some that are very focused in certain elements. And then you have some of the solar dragons. You have, some that are in the galactic and the other dimensions and so forth. I mean, you can go on. There's like an infinite number of types of dragons that exist.
Wow. I'm thinking about the, like the Egyptian hieroglyphics, and
Mhm.
like they were humans with bird heads, and they may have just been aliens that came from another planet, and that's actually what they looked like in all the different animals and
Yes.
creatures that
Yes.
you see in all of that
Oh, yes.
uniform and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, all of that is based on true story. And the way I see them is they're really our star family. So, maybe some listeners out there who may feel like they may resonate as being a star seed, so like you're here placed on this earth, but you really feel like you belong from the stars and you belong from other planets and other worlds, but you're here to experience this human life in this human suit. And so what you see like in those hieroglyphs and those paintings in ancient Egypt, paintings is really our star family. And there are beings that exist that have like the head of an animal with the body of the human. Um, and for instance, like the lion people, they do exist in the planet of Sirius. And I've seen them, I projected to them, and so they do exist. So all of that is true.
It's I'm laughing because even before I ever heard of any of this, and I don't think I've ever shared this with anybody, but I always felt like I came from Venus. And there are a lot of people who feel like they came from Venus. And when
Really?
I do
So cool.
Qigong, and one of them is I'm going traveling out in the cosmos, and I just notice all the planets that I go by, and then I leave our solar system. And I think that's probably memory, because we're
Mm-hmm.
a spirit that's eternal, and we just
Mm-hmm.
go from one lifetime to the next.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing, or maybe we're these different forms
Yeah,
of,
no, those are definitely memories. I would pay attention to that. And also the feeling of something is also a memory. It's your soul essence what
that's,
you're tapping
I
into.
never thought about that.
Mm,
So I very long ago felt like I lived in Atlantis. I saw a lot of
yeah.
different scenes of lives here. And then somebody said to me that I lived in Lemuria. And you were talking about being there. So then I met a friend and she was describing this scene. And I said, I seen that exact same scene and it was in Atlantis. So I don't know the timing in the civilizations of it. Maybe I was in both places. I
Yeah,
don't.
you could have been. You could have been. I mean, there's a reason why we're connected, and I do feel your Atlantis, energy. And it's interesting, so I could feel the Lemurian or Atlantean people and like kind of read, the energy from that. And I feel like for me, like I've been weaving a lot of both the Atlantis and the Lemurian energy because at some point during the timelines, there was a collapse of the two, the downfall.
Uh,
And so there's been a lot of the trauma that's been buried, on both sides, And so there's some form of like healing now from the collective that wants to, come through for all of us to really set aside, whatever happened and bring in more of this forgiveness energy. So living out here in the East Coast for me has been like weaving both energies because I feel like I was very Lemurian, but I was also like some kind of diplomat where I traveled from there to Atlantis and made, many like Atlanteans friends. And so, it's just we're all one. We're all part of the same family. So soul family is what I feel, And so that's why, the work that we do within us individually also impacts all of us collectively. So yeah, so it's just like feel like this, I wanted to share that because I feel some of the listeners will resonate with this.
this is such perfect timing. I'm a fan of Gary Zukav's writings. And I don't remember how old, like I don't know, it was 15 or 20 years ago. He wrote The Dancing Woolly Masters was the first book that he wrote. And he's probably written 10 or more books since then, and they're all spiritual. And right now I'm listening to one of his books he's talking about the friends who live in the 5 dimensions. And like if a friend is upset, you're trying to make everything nice. And then he talks about spiritual friends is a multi-dimensional person. And a spiritual friend, I'm getting a real strong message. I think we're spiritual friends.
We are.
That is it's not about making everything look nice and peaceful. This is what's going on, and this is where you want to go because your spirit's growing and changing. And that's a whole different way. And I think there are so very many of us, and you and I, we attract people like that because that's why we're all here at this time. And that's why the planet is changing so much because there's so many of us here. And and that book that I'm reading right now he wrote 12 years ago, but he was talking about in 2 or 3 generations, everybody will be multidimensional, which I know, and obviously you do it too. I just know things sometimes if I'm working with, or even just visiting before I knew anything about the spiritual world, these words would come out of my mouth that would be advice for somebody. And I say, that's not me. I don't know where that came from. And that's the kind of thing.
Yeah, so you're channeling
Yeah.
your higher self pretty much. Which is really your soul essence from your own, like when you have your heart connect to your soul is the way I see it, So I see this, this is very very good. So I definitely do feel our spiritual friendship. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's so cool. And when I had just met this friend, and she said, as soon as I looked into your eyes, I knew you, and I knew you from Atlantis. And she was describing the scene. I saw all those colors, everything that she was describing. I'd seen.
Yeah, I do feel that we met in Atlantis, you and I. And that's what I was feeling of my many visits to from Lemuria to Atlantis. But there are like similarities between like how Atlantis was built, and somewhat of the image of like Lemuria. So
I'll have to find something to read about Lemuria because if that person hadn't said that to me, I didn't know anything about it. And I know because I saw three different aspects of my life in Atlantis that I was a statesman and I was really, really, really tall.
Yes.
And
Yeah, they were both very tall.
oh, interesting. So it wasn't
Yes.
weird.
Yeah,
Gee,
a lot of the Lemurians in Atlantis were about 6 to 7 feet or so in height,
is
maybe
it
a little taller.
Lemurians who live in Mount Shasta? Did they say they live underground and they're all 7 feet tall?
So they, when Lemuria started to go into a downfall, a lot of them migrated out. Some migrated to South America, and some went to Mount Shasta, the Inner Earth mountain, which is now called Tellus.
Ah, ah. Yeah, when I lived in Idaho, I never went there, but I had a friend who'd go there, and she said she'd see the Lemurians like in the store because they were
Mm,
different and they were taller. It's like,
they are around, and they do sometimes come out to some of the stores, but very briefly.
wow. It's, and everybody's here. I'm just getting all these pictures. I read almost all of Shirley MacLaine's books, and thank goodness she wrote those books because all my life I had these feelings and these knowings, and I just thought that was weird. I never talked about them. And then there she is sharing these books, and it's like, I'm not weird. Lots of people have these experiences.
That's right. I guess being weird, being crazy is the new normal.
Yeah, I raise my kids. I always describe, uh, I'm different. I've always been different. And
Yes.
I was married, and we'd have like one of the kids would have a friend over for dinner, and my husband would say to them, "We're weird here," just to let them know. And that first upset my mom when we told her she was weird. And he's like, "No, no, that's a good thing. You don't want to be like average."
Yeah, yeah.
When did you feel different? Were you aware that you were experiencing things that either other people didn't have or didn't talk about?
Since I was little. I used to, as long as I can remember my childhood, I remember maybe I was like 4 years old or so. I remember seeing like actual ghosts, but I would see them like I see you, like it was normal, and they were still alive to me.
Mhm.
It's like they weren't really like dead.
Yeah.
And so I would see them like it was normal, and I would say, look over there. It's like I would tell, like my parents, I'd be like, we don't see anything there. Like, and so, yeah, I definitely saw that I was very different, in that way. And I could sense that even energetically, I could almost read other people's energy and where they were, if they were open to like, because I could actually read people's minds. But at the same time, I could read by the energies that they would be shocked if I told them I was reading their mind. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't like reveal it. And so yeah, I feel like I was already born partially awakened, you know, in that way. So
I used to be able to put my thoughts in other people's heads. And then I studied with Bob Proctor, and he said,
Mm.
don't do that. That's not a good thing.
Wow, that's some power.
Yeah, if I wanted a conversation to go some direction, I just do that. Or if I wanted to go to a certain restaurant to eat and I didn't
Mhm.
feel like speaking it, I just put it out there and everybody would get the message.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, you can still do that in a good way.
Yeah. I, I don't think I was able to, no, I couldn't read other people's thoughts though.
Oh man, so much fun. So we can jump fast forward now to my fun trip
Okay.
and my fun experience with my connection with the dragons. So fast forward, present when I went to fast forward being from like we went back in time into like Lemuria and all that. Atlantis. So now we're gonna go to Bosnia, where supposedly there have been pyramids that have been discovered, and there's been this whole controversy about like these pyramids are older than the ancient Egyptian pyramids, but that's a whole other discussion. But so in the Bosnia, this whole discovery, one of them is this dragon pyramid, and I went there for this event that was about 80 people or so, and they had planned like this whole tour for like to go visit certain pyramids, except for the dragon pyramid. It wasn't included in that tour.
Wow.
And so a small group of us, one lady decided that she wanted to form a mini group for that one group who wanted to go see the dragon pyramid, who felt called to it. I said, "Oh yeah, I want to go check out the dragon pyramids. Put me on the list." And so, anyway, so it ended up being like when I looked at her list, and this was funny because I was looking at her list and I saw on her list that she had my name 3 times on there. And it's interesting because the number 3 is about creation and manifestation, all this. And I said to her, I remember when I was sitting in that room of introduction of 80 people, I don't remember seeing 2 other Monicas there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I said, are there other 2 Monicas that signed up too? And she's like, no, all of these are you. She didn't even notice that she had written me 3 times.
Wow.
And so I said, I started thinking, I said, wow, these dragons really want me to go. Like,
Yeah.
like really emphasizing this. So anyway, I thought that was pretty funny seeing my name 3 times written on the paper and she hadn't even noticed.
I just find multi verses, and I used to read Richard Bach all the time, and you have all these parallel universes and going.
Yes.
I remember,
Yeah.
might have been my son said, when you look in your refrigerator and you can't find something, and then a minute later you look again, and at one point, I think it was him, he said, that's because you're in a different universe now. So every time I look and I'm looking for something and can't find it, and then I look in the same place and then it's there, I believe that's what's happening.
Yeah, I believe that. That's a good way to look at it for sure. But anyway, so it's funny. So finally, when the final list came through, the total number on that list was 22. And so, 22 is a master number. So it was 22 of us that ended up going to visit this dragon pyramid that was feeling called to go visit the pyramid. Obviously, I think it was the dragons calling us. So when we got to the location of the pyramid, we were just like walking around, trying to figure out which way to go, because we're all thinking we're going to go to the top, right? And make it to the top somehow. And then this dog appears, actually 2 dogs appear mysteriously. We don't know whose dogs they were, but they ended up guiding us on the trail. I thought that was really interesting. And before we made it or ascended all the way to the peak of this, pyramid to the top, we had formed like this circle, kind of like near the base, the pyramid. And they decided to do like this whole like everything was just so spontaneous, like I didn't know what was going on. So what we didn't know is that we were actually getting initiation from the dragons. And we decided to do this whole ceremonial like opening of the space, the sacred space. And during that time, I had already been channeling some light language, but I didn't know what kind of light language I was channeling. And so I don't know, like some of the people that were in that group were also like channeling light language too. And so they all say, why don't we all just speak, our light language? And at the time I was so much in my own doubts, I didn't want to like say it in public. So a lot of it I said to myself in private. And so I said, I'm just going to stand here in the circle and just listen to everybody. And when I heard everybody speaking, I was like, oh, I'm speaking dragon language. Sounds like it kind of sounds like my language.
Wow.
And so, so in a way, that kind of like gave me this, also like this activation of like confidence, in what I was doing. And so I felt like the dragons were also like polishing, what was coming through with my light language as well. And so like after, we had like finished our ceremonial circle and created our sacred space, we all continued. And meanwhile, the dogs were still there on the side. They were waiting for us. And so, and so then the dogs guided us when we were ready to go and ascend up to the top of the mountain. And there was like, when we were ascending up the mountain, was a whole other story too, because it was very steep. It just felt like it was some kind of initiation. So you had to like make this one at the last piece of it was like the most steep, and it was kind of muddy and it was kind of slippery. So it was like, so we had to like, make it across that to make it to the peak, and so I felt that was like an actual initiation from the dragons to like and so those, there were some that made it to the top and others decided didn't want to continue. So they just, held space, were in the vehicle or in the base of the pyramid, that was their calling. And those who were like called to the peak made it up to the top. But it was just really interesting how we like, in a way, kind of struggled to make it up to the top. I was like, boy, this is a lot of work for to make it up here to the top. And it was all like worth it, because when we went up to the top, we were all meditating and I had my eyes closed and everybody was silent pretty much. And then the dogs were even silent too, and they were meditating with us too. So they stayed up at the top with us during this whole time, waiting for us till we were ready to come back down. So they were pretty much like our spirit guides, in a way, in the physical form. And so I feel like it was also like, feeling now is something to do with Dog Star Sirius as well, because there were some dragons from Sirius that came to visit also. And I'm seeing in my mind's eyes, when I'm in this meditation, I see this one dragon come from like this other planet, and it was like this golden, beautiful color. And so I'm seeing that we all go into like, we get taken in our astral bodies into the inner earth and we receive like all these like wisdom of like archives of books that are like energetically, we're observing the energy of it. And so there's some kind of activation going on as well. So I thought, boy, I have quite an imagination, right? Like I said, this is a time when I was in my own doubts, I thought, I must have quite an imagination with all this stuff, And so one of the ladies that was in the group, she spoke up and she's like, oh my God, I just saw a visual. And she described like almost similar to what I was seeing. Right. I was like, oh, okay, that wasn't just my imagination. So it was just really like funny how in that moment I felt that, very deep connection with the dragons. And it's much later, until maybe like a year and a half, when the dragons told me that I was speaking an aspect of the dragon's light language, and that it was being polished, So ever since then, they've been very much, connected with me as part of my spirit guides. And so, yeah, I do receive a lot of messages and downloads from them and wisdom. And they are just fun to be around with. And they're also very powerful at the same time, And so, but yeah, that was like, that experience was, amazing. And then once we were all done with the whole like meditation at the top, as we were going down, we just like, me and this other friend of mine got into this burst of joy and got into this really playful, childlike, and we just like ran down the pyramid, like this muddy mountain. I don't even know how we were still like standing, but we were being like super adventurous, like like one of the guys who was with us was like, oh my God, these girls are going to kill me. Like, I was like, we're just like now getting into the final, stages of this initiation. And so anyway, so I thought that was pretty adventurous and exciting and very activating and initiating.
Well, I figure who we are is conscious awareness, and we're happy. That's our natural state. So if we're not, like the joy that you were talking about, that's how we're supposed to live our lives. And if we're not, we have the blocks up so that we don't get to. But it's not because the universe put them there, it's because we put them there.
Yes, that's right.
And it wasn't an accident that there were 22 of you and you were all supposed to be there together.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the part that was so amazing is the numbers, here that were showing up. The number 3, for me, and then number 22. Yeah.
It's interesting that different numbers in the different spiritual realms, like in the Chinese medicine and the Qigong, the numbers are 3 and 9 and 18 and 36. And then in the Kabbalah, the numbers are like 10. And then someplace else, I read so many things, I'm saying, no, just keep them straight, but the number 11 is what's important in it. I think it's because we're all from different worlds.
Yeah, I think they're all important. They all have their own language to them, with the whole numerology, as you may call it, so.
Well, this has been really a joy, because I knew it would be, because just being in your energy is always a joy. And do you have any message that you want to leave with people? Because you shared a whole lot of stuff that I know it was new to me, and I'm imagining it's new to a whole lot of our listeners here today. Is there anything that you want to add on top of what we've already discovered?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I shared a lot of things, right? We talked about the Mauryan Atlantis and the ancient civilizations, and I'm sure, like, if this is the first time for some people hearing it, then there's a reason for hearing, the certain things in your life, because there's a part of your soul that also has, some memory in that as well. And that's the part where, we tune into our own heart and really listen to our higher guidance. And most of all, it's like really trust yourself and your own imagination. Like the story that I shared, when I was meditating, I was thinking, oh, I'm just being so imaginative. Well, with that imagination, there's some truth to that. There's also memories that are coming up. And so that's something that I've been learning and trusting more so in myself and building that confidence in myself. So just, be trusting of yourself is really the message that I want to share with everybody.
Thank you. And none of us are weird. We're just having different experiences.
That's right. Yes, I love that.
So what is the best way for people to get in touch with you or to follow you? You'll give me all the links, or I actually have them from your last visit, probably.
Yeah. So, I mean, my best way to get in touch with me through all my social media and my emails can be found on my website, which is www.sacredheartawakenings.com. So, yeah, so that's the best way. I have everything in there organized, and all the podcasts that I've been on, including, the one that I was on first time with you, Ali. So it's all there.
It's cool. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for just brightening the world and lightening us all with, I don't like to use the word education, growth in new areas, new discoveries.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you so much for this time. I'm so grateful.
Oh, thank you. I'm just glad to spend time with you again. So I want to remind everybody to go down in the show notes so you have a reminder of the link of how to find Monica's stuff, where to pick up Step in a New Direction, how to join our Facebook group, which is growing. So go on in there and talk to us. And also the website where you can listen to or watch any episode. Thank you all for joining us here today. Thank you, Monica, for sharing who you are and what you know, and making the world a better place for all of us.
Thank you so much for your sacred space here to share with the world and having this platform.
Thank you. And I want to remind everybody to enjoy. That's capital I-N, capital J-O-Y, every moment, because nothing happens out there. Everything happens within, and I'll see you here next time.
You've been listening to a talk on the wilder side. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Get Metaphysical. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss a single episode, and while you're at it, please leave a rating and review and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every Monday for more exciting insights and wisdom on life beyond your five senses. Until next time, take a small step in a new direction. Start now.